What if there were a handful of garden perennials that could thrive for decades without the need for constant replanting, division, or expensive maintenance? What if you could choose plants that would outlast the very garden beds they were placed in, delivering vibrant color year after year while resisting pests, disease, and the harshest weather? Here are 13 remarkable perennials that prove this is possible. Number 13. Hosta, Sum, and Substance. Imagine a massive chartreuse hosta that spreads 3 feet across and towers 4 feet high at maturity, filling an entire north-facing shaded bed with a single plant. Unlike ordinary hostas, whose leaves become riddled with slug-generated holes by midsummer, Sum and Substance boasts foliage so thick that a slug's mouth cannot penetrate it. Plant this hosta in dappled morning shade. Give it at least 4 feet of open space on every side, and water it through its first summer. After that, it asks for nothing more. By the 3rd year, it will resemble the size of a small car. By the 7th year, it dominates the shaded border, becoming the focal point that every visitor asks about by name. Its chartreuse leaves against a dark backdrop provide a striking visual contrast that never needs dividing or replanting. When you run your thumb across the leaf at the nursery, you'll feel a rubbery thickness. If the leaf feels thin and flimsy, set the pot aside. That's a standard hosta, not Sum and Substance. Beyond its visual impact, Sum and Substance is a champion of low-maintenance shade gardening. The cultivar was introduced in the 1990s by a small Ohio nursery that selected for a leaf thickness exceeding 0.5 millimeters, a trait that makes the plant exceptionally drought-tolerant once established. In USDA zones 4 to 9, it will survive winter freezes down to 30 degrees Fahrenheit because its thick leaf tissue stores water and sugars that act as natural antifreeze. Gardeners who pair it with a companion of spring-blooming Helleborus will enjoy continuous seasonal interest, hostas taking over the summer, hellebores providing early spring color. If you have a larger shaded area, consider planting 2 or 3 Sum and Substance individuals in a staggered fashion. Their overlapping crowns create a lush, carpet-like effect that reduces the need for ground cover mulches. Because the plant's roots are shallow but fibrous, it does not compete heavily with deeper-rooted perennials such as Astilbe or Brunera, allowing you to design a layered shade garden that remains stable for decades. When dividing is inevitable, perhaps after 20 years when the plant begins to show a slight decline, do so in early spring. Cut the clump into sections no larger than a foot across, replant each piece at the same depth, and water thoroughly. Even after division, each new segment will retain the original's vigor, proving the cultivar's remarkable longevity. Number 12. Daylily, Happy Returns. What if a daylily could bloom continuously from early June until the first frost, without ever needing deadheading? Happy Returns stands 18 inches tall, displays a soft, buttery yellow flower form, and repeats its bloom cycle year after year. Plant it in groups of 3 at the front of a sunny bed, water it through its first summer, and then forget about it. By the 5th year, a ribbon of bright yellow will stretch across your garden from late June through October, and by the 15th year, the same ribbon persists without any division. Most garden centers stock the well-known Stella d'Oro, but Happy Returns often hides on lower shelves, discounted because shoppers don't recognize the name. Ask a staff member directly for Happy Returns and avoid the generic yellow daylilies that dominate most front bed displays. Happy Returns earned its name from a trial in the Pacific Northwest, where the cultivar was observed to bloom an average of 12 weeks longer than comparable varieties. Its longevity stems from a combination of a robust rhizome system and a unique photoperiod response. The plant's internal clock delays senescence until night lengths exceed 12 hours, effectively pushing the end of the blooming period later into the season. In USDA zones 5 to 9, the plant tolerates winter lows to -20 degrees Fahrenheit, and in hotter zones, it remains cool tolerant due to a shallow, well-aerated root zone that prevents overheating. For added texture, interplant Happy Returns with low-growing ornamental grasses such as Pennisetum rubrum or Carex everest. The grasses provide a structural backdrop that highlights the daylily's rounded blooms while catching stray pollen and providing shelter for beneficial insects. In addition, the foliage of Happy Returns turns a subtle bronze in the fall, giving you a second season of interest without extra work. If you ever need to rejuvenate a tired stand, a simple division in late summer will produce vigorous new clumps. Separate the rhizomes into sections bearing at least 2 healthy buds each, replant them at the same depth, and water well. The new plants will typically flower the following spring, confirming the cultivar's reputation for reliable, repeatable performance. Number 11. Salvia Caradonna. Consider a dark-stemmed salvia that holds its spires of deep violet flowers upright even after a severe summer thunderstorm. Caradonna's nearly black stems give it an architectural presence that ordinary Salvia Maynite lacks. Maynite's stems bend under the weight of its own blooms. Plant Caradonna in full sun with well-draining soil, and it will tolerate drought once established, attracting bumblebees and hummingbird moths from late May through July. After the first flush of violet spikes ends in late July, cut the plant back hard. A second, lighter flush appears in September, extending color when most beds have gone quiet. When you inspect plants at the nursery, look first at the stem color. If it's dark and near black, you have Caradonna. If it's plain green, move on. Caradonna was originally selected in Italy in the early 1990s for its unusual stem pigmentation, a trait caused by a high concentration of anthocyanins that also confer resistance to UV-induced leaf scorch. The cultivar thrives in USDA zones 5 to 9 and is particularly valued in coastal gardens, where salty breezes often bleach lighter-stemmed salvias. Its deep violet spikes, each bearing up to 30 tiny flowers, are known to produce a subtle fragrance reminiscent of lavender, a bonus that attracts not only pollinators, but also garden visitors who linger to enjoy the scent. A practical design tip is to pair Caradonna with low-maintenance companions such as Rudbeckia goldsturm or Coreopsis moonbeam. The contrasting foliage, silvery grey leaves of Coreopsis against Caradonna's dark stems, creates a dramatic visual rhythm that changes as the season progresses. In addition, planting Caradonna near a water feature can enhance its already strong hummingbird appeal, as the birds often hover nearby to drink and then move to the nectar-rich spikes. Because Caradonna's stems are unusually sturdy, gardeners who wish to create a formal hedge can prune the plant into a tidy, columnar shape without worrying about breakage. A single hard prune after the first bloom will encourage a second flush, and a second hard prune in late summer will keep the plant compact for winter. This pruning strategy reduces the need for annual maintenance, allowing the plant to serve as a long-term focal point in any sunny border. Number 10. Catmint Walker's Low. What if a single plant could provide 5 straight months of lavender blue clouds of small flowers, attract every native bee, repel deer and rabbits, and spread without invasive runners? Walker's Low does exactly that. Plant a 1-gallon pot in spring, and by autumn the plant will be a 2-foot wide cloud. By the 3rd year it expands to 4 feet wide, all from the original clump, not from underground runners. If you prefer a sterile version that never self-seeds, ask for Junior Walker. Either way, the plant's nectar-rich blooms keep pollinators busy while staying out of the way of neighboring perennials. Walker's Low, a cultivar of Nepeta cross Fascenii, was developed in the 1970s by a horticulturist named Walker, who sought a compact, low-maintenance mint that would not become a nuisance in small gardens. The plant's aromatic foliage contains nepetalactone, a compound that is known to deter deer, elk, and even Japanese beetles, making it a natural chemical-free defense for mixed borders. In zones 4 to 9, the mint tolerates winter lows to -30 degrees Fahrenheit and heat waves up to 100 degrees Fahrenheit, provided the soil is well drained and not overly rich. For a pollinator-focused garden, plant Walker's Low alongside low-growth perennials such as Salvia mystic or dwarf lavender, lavandula angustifolia, hidcote mini. The combined scent profile creates an olfactory corridor that guides bees, hoverflies, and even occasional butterflies from one nectar source to the next. Because the plant's seed heads are small and dry, they rarely produce unwanted seedlings. However, if you notice occasional seedlings popping up in a neighboring lawn, a light hand-weeding in early spring will keep them under control. The Junior Walker sterile selection is ideal for formal settings such as container gardens, rooftop terraces, or historic garden designs where self-seeding would be considered a flaw. Junior Walker retains the same foliage texture and flower color but produces sterile pollen, guaranteeing that no new plants will appear outside the intended planting area. Both forms are exceptionally low maintenance. After the first watering season, a modest mulch layer of bark chips or shredded leaves will retain soil moisture and suppress weeds for up to 2 years. Number 9. Sedum, Matrona. Imagine a stonecrop that holds a compact, upright form for 15 years, with purple-tinged stems and dusty rose flower heads that appear in late August and persist through the first hard frost. Unlike the popular autumn joy, which invariably splits into a hollow ring by the 5th or 6th year, Matrona maintains its mound shape, refusing to become a woody, dead center. Plant it in full sun on lean, well-drained soil. Rich, moist conditions actually weaken the plant, a common mistake gardeners make. When you're at the nursery, check the stem color. A true purple tint signals Matrona. A green stem indicates the weaker, split-prone cultivar. Matrona was introduced by a German breeder in 2005 after a decade of selecting for a compact habit and a stem coloration that resists the chlorosis common in many sedum varieties. The cultivar's purple stems are a result of high anthocyanin levels, which also provide protection against UV damage and help the plant maintain photosynthetic efficiency under intense summer sun. In USDA zones 3 to 9, the plant tolerates temperatures as low as 40 degrees Fahrenheit, making it an excellent choice for rock gardens and xeriscapes across a wide geographic range. A practical design tip is to use Matrona as a living rock in a dry creek bed. Its low, mounded habit allows it to sit among boulders without being obscured, and its late summer bloom adds color when many other perennials have already faded. Pair it with low-growth grasses such as blue grama, Bouteloua gracilis, or ornamental sedges like Carex kobold for a texture contrast that mimics natural alpine communities. Because Matrona is drought-tolerant once established, the only maintenance required is an occasional pruning of dead flower stalks after the first frost. This removal not only tidies the plant, but also encourages a tidy, compact shape for the following year. If a gardener wishes to rejuvenate an older plant that has begun to lose vigor, a light division in early spring, splitting the mound into 2 or 3 sections, will refresh the root system while preserving the cultivar's characteristic form. Number 8. Gaillardia, Aristata, straight species blanket flower. What if a blanket flower could thrive for a decade or more in poor, dry, sandy soil, while its hybrid cousins die after a single season? The straight species, Gaillardia aristata, blooms red and gold from June through September, tolerating full sun and low nutrient conditions that would kill most perennials. Hybrids marketed under names like Arizona Sun often burst spectacularly in their first year, then rot at the crown when winter moisture arrives. Look for the word Aristata on the tag. Any label lacking that word is likely a short-lived hybrid. Plant the species in lean, dry soil, and it will self-seed lightly, filling gaps without becoming a nuisance. Gaillardia aristata is a native of the Great Plains and Rocky Mountain foothills, where it endures extreme temperature swings, from scorching summer highs of 110 degrees Fahrenheit to winter lows of -30 degrees Fahrenheit. Its deep taproot accesses moisture well below the surface, allowing it to survive prolonged droughts without supplemental watering. The plant's vibrant bicolor flowers, bright orange-red centers surrounded by golden rays, are highly attractive to a spectrum of pollinators, including native bees, swallowtails, and even small beetles that feed on pollen. When designing a prairie-style garden, combine Gaillardia aristata with other drought-tolerant natives such as Echinacea purpurea, Baptisia australis, and Lupinus perennis. The resulting community mimics natural succession, where each species occupies a slightly different niche, reducing competition and enhancing overall biodiversity. Because the species self-seeds at a modest rate, it will gradually fill in bare spots, creating a carpet of color that ages gracefully. If you discover that your Gaillardia plants are not thriving, first check the soil texture. A common mistake is adding compost or peat to improve soil fertility, which actually retains too much moisture for this species and leads to root rot. Instead, amend the planting area with coarse sand or fine gravel to improve drainage. In extremely windy locations, a protective windbreak, such as a row of low-growing shrubs, can reduce leaf desiccation and improve flower longevity. Number 7. Black-eyed Susan, American Gold Rush. Consider a black-eyed Susan that resists septoria leaf spot, stays clean from June through October, and produces a dense golden fountain of flowers without any deadheading. Most homeowners default to goldsturm, which develops brown blotches and leaf drop by August, despite still flowering. American Gold Rush, bred for disease resistance, maintains immaculate foliage throughout the season. Plant it in full sun in any soil type. Its drought tolerance and heat-shrugging nature mean you'll never need to fertilize or prune it. Pair it behind low ornamental grasses such as little blue stem or prairie dropseed for a formal border that looks like a professional landscape design. American Gold Rush originated from a Midwest breeding program aimed at creating a Rudbeckia that could withstand the humid, disease-prone conditions of central Illinois. The cultivar's resistance to septoria, a fungal disease that often decimates Rudbeckia foliage, is linked to a specific gene that fortifies the plant's cuticle, making it less permeable to spores. In USD A zones 3 to 9, the plant tolerates temperatures from -40 degrees Fahrenheit to 105 degrees Fahrenheit, and its deep root system allows it to survive extended periods without irrigation. A design suggestion is to plant American Gold Rush in a sunset border, an arrangement where the tall, dark green foliage of the Susan forms the backdrop for shorter blue-gray grasses, such as Schizochyrium scaparium nebula. The contrast between the gold blooms and the muted grasses creates a dynamic visual effect that changes as the light shifts throughout the day. In addition, the plant's seed heads persist into winter, providing food for finches and sparrows, which in turn help disperse the seeds to new locations. Because the cultivar is exceptionally low maintenance, most gardeners never feel the need to deadhead. However, if you prefer a tidier appearance, a light pruning after the first frost will remove spent stems, allowing the plant to channel energy into a stronger root system for the following season. No fertilization is required, but a thin layer of well-rotted leaf mulch in early spring can help retain moisture and suppress weeds without altering the plant's nutrient balance. Number 6. Echinacea purpurea, species coneflower. What if a coneflower could survive 20 years in the same spot, attracting pollinators and providing winter interest, while the flashy hybrids disappear after 3 winters? The plain species, Echinacea purpurea, offers pink-purple petals, sturdy stems, and gentle self-seeding that fills in the surrounding area over time. Goldfinches strip the seed heads in winter, and the dried stems lend structural support to the garden bed when other perennials have faded. Avoid the expensive, showy hybrids with names like hot papaya or tomato soup. The species costs about $9 at a reputable nursery and does the real work. Echinacea purpurea is a native of the central United States, where it has evolved alongside a suite of pollinators, including monarch butterflies, bumblebees, and long-tongued flies. Its deep taproot, which can reach up to 3 feet, provides a reliable water reserve, allowing the plant to endure drought conditions typical of prairie ecosystems. The species is also valued for its medicinal properties. The root has been used traditionally by Native American tribes for immune support, a fact that adds an extra layer of intrigue for gardeners interested in herbal applications. When incorporating Echinacea purpurea into a mixed border, pair it with low-maintenance companions such as Salvia, mystic blue, and ornamental grasses like Miscanthus sinensis morning light. The combination creates a textural tapestry. The upright, cone-shaped stems of the coneflower contrast with the airy, arching foliage of the grasses, while the blue-purple flowers add a pop of color that complements the silver-gray foliage of the grasses. Because the species is self-seeding, it will gradually expand its presence without aggressive spreading. If you wish to control the spread, simply remove seed heads before they mature in late summer. Conversely, if you desire a denser stand, allow the seed heads to fall naturally. The resulting seedlings will emerge the following spring and can be thinned to maintain a balanced density. In colder climates, zones 3 to 4, a winter mulch of straw or shredded bark can protect the crowns from extreme freeze-thaw cycles, ensuring the plant's longevity. Number 5. Geranium Roseanne. Imagine a hardy blue geranium that blooms from May through October, delivering 5 straight months of periwinkle blue flowers without any deadheading or decline. Roseanne spreads into a low mound at the front of a bed, weaving gently among taller neighbors while staying compact. It thrives in full sun to part shade in any well-draining soil, and after its first summer of watering, it will perform on its own for at least 15 years. Specialty nurseries price it at $12 to $14 per gallon, a worthwhile investment for a plant the Perennial Plant Association named Plant of the Year in 2008. Rosanna, a cultivar of Geranium Roseanne, was introduced by a Dutch breeder who selected for a combination of long bloom duration and compact habit. The plant's foliage is a glossy, medium green that remains disease-free throughout the growing season, a trait linked to its resistance to powdery mildew and botrytis. In zones 5 to 9, the geranium tolerates winter lows to about 30 degrees Fahrenheit, and its vigorous root system allows it to survive periods of drought without supplemental watering after the establishment year. A classic planting scheme pairs Roseanne with a backdrop of ornamental grasses such as Festuca glauca Elijah blue, whose blue-grey foliage echoes the geranium's flower color, while the grasses provide a contrasting texture. In a cottage garden setting, intermix Roseanne with low-growth perennials like Dianthus Mrs. Moon and Heuchera Palace Purple to create a layered effect that blooms sequentially from spring to fall. The geranium's long flowering period also makes it an excellent choice for cutting gardens. Stems can be harvested in the early morning and placed in vases for a week of fresh color. To keep the plant at its most compact, prune back the outer edges after the first frost in late autumn. This encourages a tidy, bushy shape and removes any leggy growth that may have developed over the summer. Because Roseanne is a clump-forming geranium, it does not require division, but a light division every 10 years can rejuvenate older plants and increase the size of the mound, ensuring continued vigor for decades. Number 4. Amsonia hubrichti, native blue star. What if a native perennial could flash sky blue star-shaped flowers in late April and May, then turn a brilliant gold in October, providing two distinct seasonal displays? Amsonia hubrichti, a native of the Ouachita Mountains, requires virtually no maintenance after its first year, no supplemental watering, no fertilizing, and deer will never touch it. Plant it in full sun to part shade, any soil, and it will grow to a 3-foot mound that remains the same size for 2 decades without division. Its bright gold foliage in autumn can be seen from 100 feet away, offering dramatic visual impact. Amsonia hubrichti was discovered in the 1930s by botanist Albert Hubricht, after whom the cultivar is named. Its blue star blooms are composed of 5 narrow petals that open in a perfect radial symmetry, a form that has inspired garden designers for its architectural quality. The plant's deep taproot, which can extend up to 6 feet, anchors the plant firmly and supplies water during summer droughts, making it exceptionally drought-resistant. In addition, the foliage contains a natural deterrent that makes it unpalatable to deer, elk, and rabbits, a benefit that has been confirmed through multi-year field trials in the Midwest. When used in a formal garden, Amsonia hubrichti works beautifully as a mid-border accent, positioned between taller perennials such as Rudbeckia and lower-growing ground covers like Thymus sapillum. Its spring blue flowers provide a cool color contrast to the warm-colored blooms that appear later in the season, while the autumn gold foliage creates a striking backdrop for late-season perennials such as asters and sedum. Because the plant does not spread aggressively, it rarely needs to be divided. However, after 15 to 20 years, a gentle division in early spring can prevent the center from becoming woody and ensure continued vigor. When dividing, preserve as much of the taproot as possible. The new sections will re-establish quickly if the root mass is kept intact. A light mulch of shredded bark applied in late fall helps protect the crowns from extreme winter temperature fluctuations. Number 3. Garden Phlox Jana. Consider a garden phlox that resists powdery mildew, stays green from June through October, and provides abundant lavender-pink flower panicles that attract butterflies and hummingbirds. Jana surpasses older, unnamed varieties that become covered in grey, crusty mildew by mid-July. Plant Jana in full sun with average soil, water it through its first summer, and it will return wider and fuller each year for at least 15 years without any dividing. When you inspect plants at the nursery, look for clean, dark green leaves, free of any grey film. Any hint of mildew on the foliage indicates a poorer cultivar. Jana is a cultivar of Phlox paniculata, selected by a Canadian breeder who screened over 500 lines for mildew resistance and a prolonged bloom period. The plant's disease resistance is linked to a thicker leaf cuticle and a higher concentration of phenolic compounds that inhibit fungal spore germination. In USDA zones 5 to 9, Jana tolerates winter lows to -30 degrees Fahrenheit and thrives in a range of soil types, though it prefers a slightly acidic pH of 6.0 to 6.5 for optimal flower color. A popular planting arrangement is the phlox wave, where Jana is placed in the middle of a border, flanked by taller vertical perennials such as Delphinium Pacific giants and shorter, spreading plants like Nepeta Walker's Low. The result is a tiered visual effect that draws the eye from the ground up, while the lavender-pink blooms provide a continuous nectar source for pollinators throughout the summer. Because Janna's stems are sturdy, they can support the weight of the large flower panicles without flopping, eliminating the need for staking. In regions with high humidity, a light application of horticultural oil in early spring can further suppress any lingering fungal pressure, though this is rarely necessary. If the plant does begin to show the first signs of mildew, a quick prune of the affected stems and a thorough watering at the base instead of overhead will often resolve the issue without chemical intervention. Number 2. Baptisia, false blue indigo. What if a plant could be set in the ground once and then forgotten for a quarter of a century still thriving? Baptisia, named Plant of the Year in 2010, develops a deep taproot that reaches 8 to 10 feet after a few years, rendering it virtually immune to drought, heat, deer, insects, and most fungal diseases. Its blue-purple flower spikes appear in late May, resembling lupines. But unlike lupines, Baptisia persists for decades. After flowering, the stalks turn into black seed pods that rattle in autumn winds, later stripped clean by goldfinches. The plant takes 3 years to fully establish. After that, never attempt to move it, as the taproot becomes immovable. Choose its location carefully the first time, because it will stay exactly where you plant it. Baptisia, commonly called false indigo, is native to North America's prairies and open woodlands. Its deep taproot not only provides drought resistance, but also stores carbohydrates that allow the plant to regreen early in spring, often before other perennials have broken dormancy. The flower spikes, composed of numerous small pea-like blossoms, are highly attractive to native bees, such as Andrena megacephala, and to hoverflies that assist in pollination. After seed set, the pods mature into a hard black shell that persists through winter, providing a winter food source for finches and sparrows. When used in a naturalized meadow design, Baptisia serves as a structural anchor. Plant it in groups of 3 to 5, spaced 2 feet apart, to create a staggered canopy that adds vertical interest. Pair it with low-growing wildflowers such as Coreopsis moonbeam and Gaillardia Arizona sun for a vibrant, low-maintenance landscape that mimics native prairie ecosystems. Because Baptisia's foliage is a silvery green that turns a subtle bronze in fall, it adds seasonal texture even after the flowers fade. Never divide Baptisia after the 3rd year. The taproot will be too extensive to pull without severe damage. If a plant becomes overcrowded, the recommended approach is to thin surrounding seedlings rather than attempting to transplant mature individuals. In extremely alkaline soils, pH above 7.5, a modest application of elemental sulfur in early fall can improve soil conditions, though Baptisia generally tolerates a wide range of soil chemistries. Number 1. Peony. What if a single perennial could outlive its own gardener, the house it was planted beside, and even the memory of who first sowed it? Properly planted at the correct depth, no more than 2 inches below the soil surface, a peony can live for over 100 years in the same spot, requiring no division, replanting, or fertilizing after the 3rd year. Plant it in full sun with well-draining soil and watch it burst into a spectacular display of pink or white blossoms each May and June for a century. The key is depth. The growing eye, a pink bud tip at the root's top, must sit just below the soil surface. Planting deeper yields lush foliage but no flowers, a frustration that perplexes many experienced gardeners. Peonies, Paeonia lactiflora, have been cultivated in Asian gardens for over 2,000 years, and their longevity in Western gardens is equally impressive. The plant's massive, fleshy roots store enough energy to produce a spectacular floral display each spring after a period of dormancy. In USDA zones 3 to 8, peonies can survive winter temperatures down to -40 degrees Fahrenheit, and their thick, leathery leaves are resistant to many common foliage diseases, such as botrytis and powdery mildew. For a formal garden setting, plant a single, mature peony at the focal point of a symmetrical border, flanked by low-growing hostas or ornamental ferns. The contrast between the peony's towering, cup-shaped blooms and the soft, feathery foliage of the companions creates a timeless aesthetic. If you prefer a cottage garden feel, intermix multiple peony varieties such as Sarah Bernhardt, Duchesse de Nemours, and Coral Charm to achieve a succession of color from soft pinks to vibrant reds, each opening at slightly different times and extending the overall display. Because peonies are so long-lived, they are often passed down through generations. To preserve a family heirloom, keep a written record of the planting location, cultivar name, and any special cultural notes. If you ever need to relocate a peony due to construction or landscape redesign, the only viable method is to take a young plant, 3-year-old, that has not yet developed its massive taproot. Even then, a careful excavation and immediate replanting at the same depth are essential for survival. In addition to ornamental value, peony roots have been used historically in traditional medicine for their antispasmodic properties. Modern gardeners may also appreciate the plant's ability to attract pollinators. Large bees such as Apis mellifera and solitary mason bees love the rich pollen and nectar. By providing a reliable food source early in the season, peonies help support healthy pollinator populations, contributing to the overall ecological resilience of the garden. These 13 perennials answer the question, what if you could build a garden that essentially builds itself? Each plant, once placed correctly, requires minimal care, resists common pests and diseases, and provides years, often decades, of reliable beauty. By choosing the right cultivars and planting them in suitable locations, you can say goodbye to the discount rack dead plant syndrome and enjoy a garden that matures gracefully year after year. If you're ready to transform your garden into a lasting masterpiece, consider these plants for your next planting trip. Like, subscribe, and support the channel so you never have to waste another growing season on the wrong cultivar again. What if your garden could thrive forever? These 13 perennials prove it can.